This is Democracy Watch. Mark, Pam Bondi is now Trump's nominee for Attorney General. She's probably best known for accepting $25,000 as a contribution from Trump while she was considering whether or not to prosecute Trump University, which, surprise, surprise, she ultimately decided against doing. How does that inform what kind of an Attorney General she would be?
Look, that may be what she is best known for, but if you want to know what kind of attorney general she'd be, look what she did after the 2020 election. She came out of the box and was a full-out election denier. I mean, she claimed there were fake ballots, perhaps, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a woman who jumped into election denialism after 2020 and has been in that pool of lies ever since. So when you look at what the incident you're talking about, the bogus university had and the fact that she got a donation, I mean, Donald Trump knows what he wants for Attorney General. He may not know what he wants for HUD. He may not care who he gets for transportation. He doesn't even know what those agencies do. I don't think he even knows that the Energy Department doesn't just do, like, he thinks the Energy Department is like basically just does oil, right? Yeah. I mean, like, he doesn't care about governing. He knows what the Attorney General does, and he knows what he wants. He wants someone who's going to do his bidding. So we started with Matt Gaetz, right, who was sort of too dumb even for MAGA and just like, let that sink in for a moment. So he had to drop out. So now he's moved on to a more plausible candidate. She's more plausible because she was the Attorney General of the state of Florida, a big state. But she is no less, in his mind, reliable for what he cares about, which is defending himself, prosecuting his enemies, and fundamentally adopting any outrageous legal positions he wants her to adopt.
So Bondi had previously worked with the America First Policy Institute on litigation. Can you tell us more about that work and what it might portend if she becomes AG?
Yeah, so this organization, which, by the way, Democracy Docket has written a lot about this particular group and the other right-wing groups in this sort of legal orbit. But this group, you know, is one of these outfits that sued the Biden administration, sued, you know, states to try to prevent sensible policies and try to prevent, you know, the Biden agenda, prevent voting rights, you know, it's part of the big constellation of right-wing organizations that cropped up after Joe Biden came into office to try to, you know, keep Trumpism alive. So it is just further evidence that she is a MAGA Trumper through and through. And when she was in that position, by the way, you know, the America First Policy Institute was bringing anti-voting litigation. Like, so it's not like she was an election denier because she had to be in the days after the 2020 election because the entire Republican Party was falling into line. But after that, she kind of built a separate identity. She stayed in the Trump orbit. And I think that that's really what everyone out there needs to realize, is that she was a Trumper when he was in office, after he was office, and she didn't make as much noise and didn't do the crazy, outrageous things that Matt Gaetz did, but that is who she is.
Well, you know, probably the best thing she has going for her at this point is that she's not Matt Gaetz, and that Matt Gaetz preceded her. So I guess the question is, if her nomination here for Attorney General was not preceded by Matt Gaetz, how unpalatable would she seem?
Yeah. By the way, imagine realizing that your best calling card to your nomination and confirmation is that you're not Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's where we've wound up. But you're right. That is probably the best thing she has going for her. Look, what we cannot.
It's a hell of a thing to put on a resume. Just bullet point number one: not Matt Gaetz, not someone who sucks the most.
Yeah, we cannot define deviancy down like that. I mean, we can't be like, look, as long as you are not Matt Gaetz, you are now palatable. Right. So it's important that people sort of cleanse themselves, and believe me, you'll be happy you did, of the idea of Matt Gaetz. Like, set him aside for a moment, cleanse your mind and yourself of thoughts about Matt Gaetz. And then look at her record on its own, and you'll come to the conclusion that I think any reasonable and sensible person would, which is that she is going to execute the personal whims of Donald Trump. If that's what you want as the Attorney General, you got the right person. If you want someone who is going to maintain the independence of the agency, is going to stand up for the Justice Department as an institution, you got the wrong person.
Well, do you think that this is someone whose confirmation Democrats should protest, knowing that we have limited political capital, knowing that if we protest everybody and do the 5-alarm fire thing about everybody, then it doesn't seem like there's a 5-alarm fire about anybody. And so, given the fact that we have to kind of pick a few hills to die on, is this somebody who's worth focusing our attention on?
Look, if you have paid any attention to Donald Trump through his entire career, and by the way, I mean that before he was even a candidate for president, what has he said? He has said, "Where is my Roy Cohn?" Who is Roy Cohn? Roy Cohn was a disgraced lawyer who Donald Trump used in the late part of his career, who was known for being an outrageously aggressive, unrepentantly terrible, unethical human being. And that's what Donald Trump wants, right? Donald Trump wants lawyers who are willing to ignore the law, flout rules, disobey orders, whatever it is. Like that's what he thrives off. We have seen that, Brian, over the course of his business career, but also over the course of the last few years since he's been in office. Who has he had falling outs with? He's had falling outs with lawyers who stand up to him because they tell him what the law is, not what he wants to hear. Right. And so do I think the Attorney General is the hill to die on? Absolutely, it's the hill to die on. Because it is not just the hill to die on because of who Pam Bondi is. It is the hill to die on because of who Donald Trump is. So if there is one place that you need that person that is going to not be a total sycophant, it is the Attorney General of the United States.
Well, I guess the obvious follow-up to that is that anybody who Trump appoints is gonna fulfill the qualifications that he's seeking. So if it's not Matt Gaetz doing his bidding, it's going to be Pam Bondi doing his bidding. If not Pam Bondi, then he has a whole list of people. But I don't think. And I'm curious your thoughts on it. Do you think he would ever get to somebody who is actually going to serve as a moderating force to his worst impulses?
Maybe not. I mean, the answer is maybe not. The only thing that would give me hope is that Donald Trump is a wannabe dictator. He is a wannabe autocrat. He is, he wants the worst possible outcome for rule of law. But he is also easily distracted and does things impulsively.
Yeah.
So who the hell knows? Maybe the next person will walk into the room and say, "Hey, I'd like to be Attorney General." And it will turn out that they are actually a reasonable human being. But Donald Trump was so distracted by something he saw on his social media platform that he'll nominate him. I mean, there isn't a rhyme or reason to a lot of the people who Donald Trump chooses.
Right. Some of them are actually in conflict with each other. And so there's kind of uncertainty about who would be able, whose position would prevail.
No, that's exactly right. So I agree. It is not likely that he will ever land on someone who is acceptable, but that's not a reason not to have the fight that is in front of us.
And finally, let's finish off with this. There's recent reporting that indicates that Trump and those in his orbit want the DOJ to spend time investigating voter fraud in the 2020 election during his upcoming term. Does that worry you, this prospect of a misguided effort to investigate non-existent voter fraud that clearly serves the purpose of being able to lay some type of a predicate for him to baselessly prosecute those who he views as his political enemies?
I mean, first of all, I think everyone needs to take a step back and realize that Donald Trump is going to use the Department of Justice to investigate and potentially even prosecute his enemies. That is baked in the cake, whether it is over the 2020 post-election, whether he goes after the prosecutors in Jack Smith's offices, whether he goes after, former generals who did, whatever generals are supposed to do that he didn't like. Donald Trump is coming with vengeance in his heart and with a plan of having a Department of Justice that'll execute it. Now, it doesn't mean it will get executed, doesn't mean it will happen, but it is not impossible. And I recently wrote something for Democracy Docket to address this head on, in which I said, look, I worry too. I am worried that Donald Trump will seek retribution, that he will unleash a right-wing mob, that he will use the power of the state to go after his enemies, including people, like he has said before, lawyers who he thinks have been against him in election cases. But here is the deal. He wants us to be afraid. He wants to use fear as a way to keep us from speaking out.
Yeah.
He wants to use fear to keep us from holding him accountable. And that is what autocrats do. And what has really disappointed me in the last few weeks is watching particularly members of the media, but not only members of the media, corporate leaders as well, to be so quick, even before he's in office, to be kissing the ring, to be letting that fear of what might happen become a reality in their life and make them back down. And the moment you do that, number one, you give up something very, very important about your integrity. But the second thing is you show Donald Trump that he has you. And once he's got you, you're not safer. You're more at risk. So I need everyone out there listening to just, stand up and steel your spine. It's going to be a difficult few years. But we all need to stand up for what is right and keep fighting for our country, keep fighting for democracy, keep fighting for an independent media like the work you do, Brian, every single day. Because if we do that, we'll make it through this.
Perfectly put. Absolutely, absolutely brilliantly put. Again, for those who are watching right now, if you're looking to support the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing and standing up to folks like Donald Trump when so many members of the media, so many members of the corporate community are not, please sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting elections. It's a resource I use on a daily basis. And as more and more people walk away from legacy media, given their failings, this is where you should focus your attention. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Taylor Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.